So I figured I would just continue down the path of reading and consuming scary things. So I decided to read World Tree Volume 1. This is from Image Comics, written by James Tynion, art by Fernando Blanco, colors by Jordie Bellaire, art by Aditya Bidikar. And this is one of those comics where I feel like James Tynion has pulled his thoughts out of, or pulled thoughts out of my mind and put them succinctly, like beautifully to page. And I say that with a big asterisk because this book is extremely dark, and extremely gory and extremely murderous. And like, I would not recommend this to like anybody who does not care to see brutal death and murder on page, because that is what this book is full of, like right from the get-go. So I'm going to put that out there to begin with. But I do want to just start my discussion of this with the criticism at the top, because I think Tia a long while back had read issue 1 of this and had a lot of issues with how gazy this book is, right? How male gazy it is. There's a main character, her name is Fear. She walks around mostly naked throughout the entire book. And I think it serves a purpose for the character to show that she sheds societal norms by not wearing clothes or wearing very little clothes. However, I think that a book like this can do that type of character without them being portrayed in such a way that it feels almost sexualized, right? Character can be naked on page without it feeling like I'm just like this panel was made so that I could stare at this character's boobs. And I feel like we get that a
Mm-hmm.
lot throughout this first volume. So I definitely understand the very, very valid criticism of how the art portrays this character Fear, rather than trying to lean into the she's very crazy aspect, which is what it's supposed to be, because everybody who sees this part of this technological thing kind of at the core of the book goes a little bit out of their mind as they've been consumed by this other dimensional thing. We don't really know the answer to it yet. I don't want to spoil all the pieces that we find out in the
Mm-hmm.
volume. um, but I think you can portray that character without it just being like half page sized panels of like this woman from her like mid section upwards. You can show
Mm-hmm.
that character's naked without doing that consistently throughout this book. So
Well, Mike,
go ahead.
once you said, "Oh, she's naked because she is rejecting societal norms," my brain went, "A dude wrote
No,
this." Like that is just not
here is the thing.
like
I'm going off of
no.
like an assumption, because that's not explicitly
Sure.
stated in the book, right? The idea is this, because we see another person who's been affected by this thing in the book and they haven't
Yeah.
done that, but she's doing
Oh.
that for
Hmm.
reasons of, I don't know. We haven't really gotten an answer. That's just the thing that I'm assuming, because people who see this thing, they start to do all sorts of weird non societally accepted things. I assume that's why she's doing that. I don't think it's a strong enough reason to do that.
It
Um,
no, it's not.
so that criticism aside, I found this book to be interesting and extremely dark in a way that I think 21-year-old Mike would think is the coolest thing he's ever read in his entire life. And that is like a an interesting or a weird thing to say, because like I vibe with this book on like a, oh, this is really dark and fucked up kind of level. The type of thing where if you spent your early 20s, late teens on like the bottom of the internet in the guttural awful spaces of Chan boards and Live League and something awful forums, you totally understand where the core of this book is coming from, of like these were people who were on the internet in the quote unquote early days of like popularity, and they found this other side of the internet, this darker, unreal dimension kind of. It very much gives me like Hellraiser vibes in some very, very tiny little ways. But I understand what Tynion is trying to do, or Tynion is trying to do with this book, of taking all of these weird, gross things and saying, what if it wasn't just people doing this? There was like an a thing out there. I want to say like an entity of some kind that's like kind of compelling people to do this. But I don't know.
Oh, so it's like mimetic but different
Yes,
this
but
time.
different. Yes.
Kind of like how the Wachowskis said, like, "Ah, the Matrix, that worked. Let's do it again." And then we got Jupiter
So
Ascending.
yeah, sort of. I wouldn't say that it's that kind of jump from Matrix to Jupiter Ascending, but I understand like where Tynion is coming from with this idea of like the people who showed me the darkest, grossest shit on the internet. They are the inspiration for this book, and I understand that, because at the time I was very much that type of person who was looking for the darkest, grossest shit on the internet to like freak out with it with my friends, right? And I stopped doing that probably in the early 2010s, because I got very paranoid of like, I don't know who can ever see my browsing history. Let's just never look at that stuff, to absolve myself from any claims of Mike's looking at really weird shit on the internet. So I don't know. I think Tynion has continued to do what he's done in a lot of his more recent books in this series, which is derive a lot of really interesting characters with like very solid relationships in this book, because there's a web of people that are kind of coming together to tell this story, and every single person feels very real, and also feels like a vessel in which Tynion can like channel some of his own feelings and anxieties through. Like each individual person feels fully relieved, and they all touch on different things that I can weirdly relate to, of like feelings of uncertainty among friendships, feelings of uncertainties of like the authority around you, feelings of like there's one character in particular that I thought was very well described, of like she's older, she's had 4 kids, and she's just longing for a relationship where she can be close to someone, and not like in a sexual way, but like in a, can we lay on a bed together and just kind of be close to each other without there being anything more than that. Like I like really like the way that he like described that entire scene, and had this character talking to another character about it. Like, and I feel like this book is full of characters like that, who have these wants and needs that Tynion is trying to describe without, and it all comes together in a way that doesn't feel forced. Like all of these moments feel supernatural. So the fact that this book is based around this really dark, gross thing, and yet you get these extremely like touching, real moments between people is very interesting to me. I really liked it. I don't know. I think I don't know if I could have read this book month to month, but reading it as a collected edition, it's like 136 pages. You fly through it very fast. And honestly, you can skip past the grosser stuff, and it doesn't change the story. So if you were interested in it, that'd be my recommendation to it. But ultimately, I wouldn't recommend this to you if you are not a fan of like gore and horror, and I say this of like violence against people of all ages and types. And it is absurd the things that are drawn into this book. So if you're not a fan of that, don't even pick this book
Nope.
up. Don't even consider it. But if you're
Noted.
numb to it, like someone like me,
Like,
go ahead and read this book because it's interesting. So I don't know. That's
I love
my review of it, I guess.
I love, like, while you're describing your part of the internet and your background with the internet and why this book like did have some appeal for you in that regard. Like Danny said, keeping with our theme of nostalgia, although that's a more different type of nostalgia.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mike. I was just gonna mention, because I didn't want to interrupt, but I have read some World Tree.
Oh yeah.
The one thing I will mention to you on top of that, to close out that discussion and guide us back to comics, I think Fernando Blanco does such a good job at the flashbacks and changing his art style from that dark and gritty.
Yeah.
Because the book almost feels like, if you've ever seen the show *Halt and Catch Fire*,
Yeah.
about like computers from the, like, it feels a lot like that.
Yes.
And I was very excited for the book for that. So I read the first issue. I was waiting for the trade. So now that you've given me a little bit more light on it, I think I'm gonna check it out.
Okay.
Just to see, because I was never also like a dark web. Like, no, thank you.
I mean,
Thanks for
so I might just skim over those pages. But
yeah.
Thanks for reminding me about *Halt and Catch Fire*, though, because I haven't seen it, and you said that, and my brain went, Lee Pace. Lee Pace is 6'5" or 6'4", whatever the truth is.
And Christopher Campbell, the creator of the show, he does comics. He's doing comics now. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nick convinced me a long time ago to jump in on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and it's
so good.
So good. I feel like I need to go back and rewatch it. It's so good.
And it takes place in Dallas too, because that's where the company.
Well, Danny, when I come visit you in Dallas one day in the future, you're gonna have to give me a tour around Dallas where they shot
the tour of *Halt and Catch Fire* of fictional locations. Sure, we'll find it.